Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Batra, page 167b, top of the page with the words Kos Finshtar Leloive Afal Pi Shem Malve Imo Ben Kos Fin Malve Ad Shehe Loive Imoy Ve'Loive Nesin Sachar. A scribe may write a promissory note for a debtor who requests one, even if the creditor is not with him. He requests the document, but a scribe may not write a promissory note for a creditor who requests it unless the debtor is with him and consents. And it is the debtor who gives the scribe his wages. A scribe may write a bill of sale for a seller of a field who requests one even if the purchaser is not with him when he presents his request. But a scribe may not write a bill of sale for a purchaser who requests it unless the seller is with him and consents. And it is the purchaser who gives the scribe his wages. Ein kois finshtar erusin v'nisuin ela b'das nehem me'achoson noisin sacho. A scribe may not write documents of betrothal and documents of marriage except with the consent of both parties, the groom and the bride. And it is the groom who gives the scribe his wages. Ein koisin shtar erisus v'kablanus el vidas nehem ve'mekablanus zacha. A scribe may not write contracts for sharecroppers and contractors except with the consent of both parties, meaning the sharecropper or contractor and the one who hires him. And it is the sharecropper or contractor who gives the scribe his wages. Ein koisvin shetere berurin v'chol masi bezdin el midash shneim u'shneim noisin sachom v'shem gamliel omer l'shneim koisvin shnayim l'zeh la'atzmoi v'l'zeh la'atzmoi. A scribe may not write documents testifying to arbitration agreements or any other court enactment except with the consent of both parties to the litigation, and both parties give the scribes his wages. Give the scribe his wages. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says the scribe writes two documents for the two parties, one for this one by himself and one for that one by himself. And that was the Mishnah. And now we start the Gemara. The Gemara asks, "My umilvad she makiran Rav Yehuda ubilvad shehe makir shema ish beger v'shema isha beshovar." The Gemara asks, what is meant by provided that the scribe recognizes the parties requesting the document? Rav Yehuda says that Rav says it means provided that he recognizes the man's name in the case of the bill of divorce and the woman's name in the case of the receipt. Yasiv Rav Safra v'Rav Achal Bar Huna v'Rav Huna Bar Chanina Yosef Ba'Gabayu v'Yasvi v'Kamibaya lehu Shem Ha'ish Beget in Shema Isha Lo Shema Isha Beshovar in Shema Ish Lo. The Gemara relates that Rav Safra and Rav Acha Bar Huna and Rav Huna Bar Chanina were sitting, and Abaye was sitting near them. And as they were sitting, they raised a dilemma. Did Rav mean that with regard to the man's name in the case of a bill of divorce, yes, it must be known to the scribe, but the woman's name need not be known to the scribe? And did he mean that with regard to the woman's name In the case of the receipt, yes, it must be known to the scribe, but the man's name need not be known to the scribe. But if so, let there be a concern that perhaps the man who made the request writes the bill of divorce and intends to go and give it to the wife of another man with the same name. V'zimnin az lo kasva isha shovar v'yehava legavra dila. And similarly, in the case of the receipt, let there be a concern that there will be times when a woman writes and the receipt and intends to give it to a man who is not her husband, whose wife shares her name. Okay. And similarly, Zimnin az lakasa isha shovar, you have the gavri dilav. And similarly, in the case of the receipt, let's be concerned that there will be times when the woman writes the receipt and intends to give it to a man who is not her husband, whose wife shares her name. Okay? Amar lahu Abaya. Abaya said to them, Haki amarav shem ha'ish baget, v'hu hadin l'shem ha'isha, v'shem ha'isha b'shovar, v'hu hadin l'shem ha'ish. Abaya said, you are not understanding Rav's statement correctly. This is what Rav says. The man's name in the case of the bill of divorce must be known to the scribe, and the same is true of the woman's name, which must be also known to the scribe. And the woman's name in the case of the receipt must be made known to the scribe. And the same is true for the man's name, which must be also known to the scribe. Yosef. Ben Sheba הדברים בעירחה דילמה כסף גיטה ואז לימדתי לאיתיתי דהייך אמר לו רב אחא בר הונא הכי אמריו שני יוסף בן שמעון הדרים בעיר אחת אין מגרשין נשן אלא זה בפני זה. They continue their line of reasoning, and even if both names are known to the scribe, let there be a concern for the possibility of two men with the same name, such as two men named Joseph ben Shimon, who lived in one city and whose wives share the same name as well, and perhaps the man who made the request will write the bill of divorce and intend to go and give it to the wife of the other man who bears the same name as him. Rav Acham bar Huna said to them in reply that this is what Rav says. If there are two men in Yosef ben Shimon who live in one city and are married to women who share the same name, they may divorce their wives only in the presence of one another. Okay. And they continued to ask, but even if the scribe knows the man's name and the name of the man's wife, would be concerned that perhaps someone will go to another city and establish a false name for himself as Yosef ben Shimon, and he will write the bill of divorce and give it to the wife of the other man, whose name really is Yosef ben Shimon. Amar lahu Rav Hunachin Barchin and Hachi Amar Rav. Kol Shuchzak Shamo Ba'ir Ushloshim Yom Ein Choshin Lo. Rav Yehuda bar Chinina said to them that this is what Rav says. With regard to anyone whose name has been established in a city for 30 days, there is no concern harbored about him that his name is false. It is assumed that this is his true name. La ichzikvai Omer Abaye dikaru be ba'ani Razviramar rima'a bera'amute zahir. He continued to ask, what if his name has not been established for 30 days? How can a newcomer in town have a bill of divorce drawn up for him? Abaye said it is sufficient that people call him by the name he claims for himself, and he responds to that call. Razvid said a liar is careful about upholding his lies. Just because he responds to being called by a particular name does not prove that he is telling the truth. A newcomer would therefore have to wait 30 days before requesting that a scribe write him a bill of divorce. Ahu Tavara Zehavichasimala Rav Yeremia Baraba said the Kame Ahu Hahi Itita Amra Le Lav Ana Havai Amar Ana Nami Amri Luhu Lav I He Ve'amru La Mikash Hu Dekasha La Ubagar La Kala. It was taught a certain there was a certain receipt of payment of the marriage contract upon which Rav Yomi Bava was signed as a witness. The woman whose name matched the name on the receipt came before Rabbi Yirmiyah, or Rav Yirmiyah, seeking to collect payment of her marriage contract. Rav Yirmiyah recognized her name, but not her appearance. The woman said to him, If it was not I whose name was on the receipt you signed, another woman came with the same name. I have not collected payment of my marriage contract. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, I too said, the other witnesses signed the contract. The woman for whom we signed the receipt is not too. But said to me, it is in fact the same woman, but she has aged, and her voice has matured, and changed, that is why you do not recognize her voice. Abaya said, even though, said that although this they just said, and the next daf, we'll pick it up next daf. Here's Hashem.